Hello everyone, welcome to today's podcast. Today's podcast for ancient wisdom is gonna be about Greek philosophy. So I've chosen three major Greek philosophers who have basically left their mark on the philosophical world, on our spiritual world. When it comes to all of these esoteric knowledge, philosophy, metascience, physics, mathematics, science, everything. And they've left behind really wise words that I am going to go over today. And we're gonna actually discuss it, what it really means. Because there is a deep wisdom behind what they were talking about. So, Greek is all about, it was after the Egyptians. So it's kind of like we're progressing in the way that we're approaching this ancient wisdom. I'm doing my Egyptian mythology series on my School of Thought, which is still going on, by the way. And it has to do a lot also, what we've been learning in regards to Jesus' life in the Bible and the Old Testament. It all has to do a lot with Egypt. So Egypt was strong in that. Then we went over here with the Druids and Celtic wisdom, which also left a big footprint on earth in regards to wisdom and how the Druids were trained. They were trained for like 20 years before they were actually wise enough to give counsel, to the important people like the kings, the queens, and all the people in power, in political power. So now we're going to talk about the philosophers in the Greek era. Think of it, like the mentors of this era. Like think of like Tony Robbins, how he mentors, the people of influence nowadays, the celebrities. Well, these Greek philosophers used to mentor kings back in the day, political leaders back in the day, like Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was a Greek king, Napoleon, right? And Napoleon too. And they were actually mentored by one of these philosophers that I'm going to talk over today. Okay, so all of this is very important. So I made, of course, a condensed version of a PowerPoint. So let us begin with the first one, the oldest one. In 470 BC, guess who it is? It's Socrates. Here's a picture of who Socrates is. And I'm sure you've all heard of his famous quotes, but I'm going to give you just a little background and then go over the quotes, and we're going to discuss the meaning behind their philosophical words. Socrates was a Greek philosopher credited as one of the founders of Western philosophy and being the first moral philosopher of the Western ethical tradition of thought. So he was the first one of the first ones to really bring this influence in the philosophical study, school of thought. His students actually were Plato and Aristotle, which are the other ones that we're going to discuss after. His way of life, his character, his thought exerted a profound influence on ancient and modern philosophy. It basically set the picture, it set like the blueprint for how, future generations were to think about life. Okay, this lifestyle, the bigger picture. His main subjects of study were actually the universal world, the soul. He talked a lot about the soul. He talked about ideas, definitions, and inductions. A lot of, logical reasoning kind of mentality he had. He sought to answer questions such as, big questions like what is virtue? Okay, things like that. What is justice? And all of this has to do with our spiritual journey. Okay, in order to be a moral spiritual being, we have to, have virtues. We have to develop virtues such as patience, for example. Patience is a virtue that we need on this journey that really relates to faith. All of these things, for example, justice, knowing that every day is judgment day. Justice is about God always bringing order, God always bringing justice into the world, okay? And he also helped others to do the same on their journey, helped others to seek the answers. Now, his style of philosophy was to engage in public conversation. So he was very much a public speaker. All of these philosophers that I'm going over, they were public speakers in their era. So this is not new stuff, you see. We've basically just, over the years modernized this public speaking and, life coach, motivational coaches kind of thing, but this is not new stuff. And his main conversations were about human excellence and skillful questioning to show that his interlocutors did not know what they were talking about. Now, despite negative results of these encounters, he holded some broader positive views because he did get some, affliction, okay, some controversy, some resistance from people who don't want to hear the truth, basically. And that included the virtue. That virtue is a form of knowledge. And care of the soul is cultivation of that virtue. Because if you really care for your soul, you're going to work on cultivating these certain virtues that make us better human beings. Progression, as Tony Robbins liked to say. You know, the key to happiness, the key to actually living your life to the fullest is progressing. That's called soul evolution. And is being of service. How can you help others on their journey? That's it. That's all that matters in life. Okay, the material doesn't matter. The money, the power, the status, that doesn't matter. It's the virtues as a human soul that matters. Because when you leave Earth, when you're on your deathbed, what are you going to be thinking about? Think about that. Have you ever spoken to a person who was on their deathbed? And that is the most important human obligation, as well as love. And he talks about this. Now, some of his major quotes that he likes to say, okay, an unexamined life is not worth living. Think about that one. It actually relates to what I just said about the deathbed. If you haven't taken the time to have a life review, then you've basically wasted your life. You see, because every single lifetime is an opportunity to progress onto the next level in the next lifetime. Soul evolution. This is how you become a wise old soul, basically. It doesn't just happen because you think you know it all, or because you've achieved a PhD degree in your life. That doesn't mean anything in regards to your spiritual journey. An unexamined life means you haven't taken the time to look at your mistakes and grow from them. An unexamined life means you haven't learned from the karmic cycles. You haven't broken the patterns. An unexamined life means you're in denial and you don't want to face the truth of the person staring at you in the mirror, which is your very own reflection. He continues with saying, one thing only I know, and that is that I know nothing. How true is that, especially for everyone on their soul journey? Admit that you don't know anything. Stop trying to know it all, basically. Take the time, instead of wasting your time, saying that you know it all. Take your time to actually do your research, do your homework, learn new things. Listen to people who know what they're talking about because they listen to masters. They did their homework. They're not just talking out of just talking. That's actually another quote that I'm going to get to, but it's basically, I read that somewhere lately. It was like, I think it's one of the quotes actually. It's like, if you don't have, I'll get to that quote actually. Okay, I really want to look for it, so let me look for where is it? Well, I can't find it, but it was basically like, there it is. It was Plato that says, I knew I saw it somewhere. It says, wise men speak because they have something to say. Fools speak because they have to say something. So you see, it's not about just saying things and not even practicing it in your life, or not knowing what you're talking about, just talking about in circles. So that's what, basically what it's saying, okay? Take the time to examine your life and basically admit that you don't know anything. So this is when you actually become teachable by the divine. Same quote that I like to repeat in my daily messages is, the emptiness of your mind allows for the genius of the divine. Erase all of the preconceived notions of what you think you know, of what society taught you, because what society taught you, what even your family taught you, no offense, was actually learned through, society, from past lives, from ancestral lineages. These ideas get passed down without there being a review, a tweak, what is that word? An adaptation, an adjustment to the thought. You see, this is how family traditions get passed down. Not to say that family traditions are bad, but when they're ignorantly passed down without a basic reasoning as to why I'm following those traditions, then it becomes ignorance, and hence you really don't know anything. You see, so this is where you have to really take the time to actually Ask questions, ask why. And that's gonna, answer your question. God will answer your prayers when you empty your mind of what you think you know. And he will fill it up, or she, because God is androgynous. God will fill you up your mind with the truth, okay? And for those who are unawakened on their journey, unfortunately, it could trigger you. But that's part of the journey, okay? Learning to be triggered and accepting the trigger is actually called humbling yourself. Humbling yourself to the divine. Surrendering because he is the one in control. When we surrender and humble ourselves before the divine, that says a lot about us. We are acknowledging that we are sons of God, we're not God. Okay? So back to the topic, basically. When the debate is over, he says, slander becomes the tool of the loser. This is about sore losers, okay? When the debate is over and you lose, and you keep talking badly about the winner, basically, that's a tool of the loser because they don't know how to lose. But guess what? In order to win, you need to learn how to lose. So that's where that's coming from. Then he goes on to say, beware the barrenness of a busy life. This is exactly about, the unfortunate speed which people are living at in this modern life. Go, go, go. Rush, rush, rush. Stress, stress, stress. This creates barrenness. And you know what barrenness actually means in the Bible? See how it all relates? Barrenness actually means inability to have children, infertility. So how does this relate to everybody? It says, beware of the lack of creativity and fertility of projects and ideas and inspiration because of a busy lifestyle. Because with a busy lifestyle, you can't listen to the divine. Your mind is basically crowded and clattered. Clattered by thoughts. You see, it's always in busy. There's no room for anything to enter. So you block out the divine, basically. And it creates staleness as well, boredom, lack of life, lack of passion, lack of color. Then he goes on to say, true knowledge exists in knowing that you know nothing, what we just said. Then he says, to find yourself, think for yourself, exactly. If you really want to find your true higher self, you want to get to know your soul, then actually take the time to think for yourself. Don't be a follower, basically. Don't follow what people have taught you to think. And even this message comes strongly in the Art of Mastery video. Okay, when you're trying to become a master at your own craft, you don't just blindly follow your masters either. Okay, even these philosophers didn't blindly follow Socrates. They all had their own twist to their ideology of what they believed. Hence why there's a separate, theory for Aristotle and a separate one for Plato, because they all had their own way of thinking. So this is about you thinking for yourself. Okay, that's you taking power over your life. That's you being a leader of your life. That's you being an adult, basically. Then education is the kindling of a flame, not the filling of a vessel. So what he goes on to say here, exactly, education is like when you're so curious about this journey, about learning new things because you know nothing, that's a rekindling of the flame, which is indicative of the passion for your life. This brings passion in your life. When you're actually curious and you're actually, looking forward to learning new things, being teachable, it's not filling a vessel, okay, not filling a void in your life. You're just rekindling the passion. Because it's impossible to fill up an empty void. You see, that's an oxymoron. You can't basically light the fire to a place that has no fire. You understand? But you can rekindle the flame to a place where there was a fire before. Okay, so that's what it means, if you understand what I'm saying. You can't spark a passion where there was no passion in the first place. Okay? All right, so let us go to the next one. There is only one good knowledge, and there is only one good, which is knowledge. And there is only one evil, which is ignorance. Then he goes on, I know nothing except the fact of my ignorance. So these are all kind of reiterating the same thing, emphasizing the same theme, concept. And then I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think. Yeah, this is about being a non-confrontational teacher. Even me being a therapist, you have to take a more non-confrontational approach and detached one at that. You can share your ideas of what you know, your knowledge of what you think you know, your opinions of your own experience based on your own experience, but you can't make people think the way you think. But you can only make them think, basically. You see, you spark some creativity, some curiosity, and you make them think, okay? You open up that little spark, okay, which basically brings about the change. And that's actually a psychology strategy. Then we move on to Plato. Look at that. He's the next one in line. Plato was in 428 BC. We have Socrates at 470 BC. So 428 BC, he was a Greek philosopher, teacher, writers. They all wrote books as well. Public speaker, and Socrates' most brilliant student. So he was the most brilliant student out of Aristotle and Plato. He laid the groundwork for ethics, aesthetics, epistemology, which is the study of knowledge, metaphysics, which is the study of reality, and early forms of science. He later became a mentor to Alexander the Great. So it was Plato who was basically the mentor and counsel of Alexander the Great. He wrote his most notably book, The Dialogue, covering almost every discipline of human knowledge. And he is an idol among truth seekers. Now, some of the quotes, I really love this quote that I'm going to say right now. Love is a serious mental disease. This is the twin flame journey, okay? Love can make you do crazy things. Love makes you question your sanity, especially the twin flame connection. Love takes over your mind, exactly. It's a mental disease, okay? And that's for you to basically decipher, There's something about poetry that he said as well that I really like. There you go. Actually, I think it was the next one. He was basically saying, the one who has experienced love is what brings the poet out of them. If you have never experienced love, true love, then there's not going to be that poet within you. He said that somewhere. Okay, now he says, only the dead have seen the war. That's true. Because the dead have experienced a tragic war. That's why they're dead, basically. Like, think people who went on to battle. And this can also be a metaphor for the ego death. Only when you're at that verge of experiencing an ego death have you really had to experience that war within your mind. Okay. Then he says, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. This is about non-judgment, okay? Everyone is facing their own battle in their own way, okay? And this is why I do what I do, because you're not in this alone. And I want to be that beacon of light and hope for you, to basically show you that this journey is a hopeful one. Your spiritual journey, your love journey, all of it. There's hope for you. You just got to do the work. Seek the guidance, trustworthy guidance to lead you on the right path. Okay, hand by hand. And then he goes on to say, very smart. He was very good with mentoring like younger ones, because he goes on to say, never discourage anyone who continually makes progress, no matter how slow. No matter how slow as a turtle your progress is, never discourage them, because that's their own pace of absorbing knowledge or learning in their life. He goes on to say, good actions give strength to ourselves and inspire good actions in others. You being that role model will speak louder than you just speaking whatever it is you're speaking. Being that inspiration through your actions. Then he goes on to say, excellence is not a gift, but a skill that takes practice. We do not act rightly because we are excellent. In fact, we achieve excellence by acting rightly. Exactly, practice makes it perfect. You become excellent and you become a master of your craft through practice, through continuous doing of the same thing, repetitive over and over and over, making it a habit so that it can become excellent. Then he goes on to say, wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something. Then he goes on to say, the beginning is the most important part of the work. Begin somewhere. That's the most important part. Okay, don't wait till you feel when you're perfect. The time is now. You have to start somewhere in order to get it going. Well, okay, this was the one I was looking for. Every heart sings a song, incomplete, until another heart whispers back. This means that, every heart sings a song incomplete because they've never experienced real love. Those who wish to sing always find a song. You see, those who always just want to sing something poetic or romantic, or maybe just want to experience love, they'll always find a lover to imitate that true love because they've never experienced true love. You see, they'll always find someone to fill that empty void, that incomplete void, incomplete heart that has never known love before. So those who wish to sing, those who wish to be in love will always find a lover. Now this lover can be basically based off the wrong reasons. But then he says, at the touch of a lover, a true lover, like when you meet your twin, when you meet a true divine soulmate, everyone becomes a poet. Then your heart transforms and sees the bigger picture and becomes more intrinsically deep in your way of viewing love and life. You become a poet at your life. Everyone is a poet at heart, but it's the experience of love that triggers that sparks that to come into fruition. Then he goes on, opinion is the medium between knowledge and ignorance. So you see, your opinion is not knowledge and opinion is not ignorance. It's in the middle. Because you form opinions based off what you think you know, but you're still a little bit ignorant. That's how I'm interpreting it to be. Then, so basically it's always to seek knowledge, seek the truth, okay? Don't get stuck in forming opinions that have no basis, basically. Then, there are 3 classes of men: lovers of wisdom, lovers of honor, and lovers of gain. Lovers of wisdom are those spiritual truth seekers. Lovers of honor are those who wish to be respected, power hungry. Lovers of gain are those money hungry or power hungry as well. But lovers of honor can also be, loyalty. Think like a knight. He's honorable. So there is in every one of us, those who seem to be most moderate, a type of desire that is terrible, wild, and lawless. This is about everyone having their own darkness within. Everyone has a dark side. We already know that. And everyone has experienced a dark night of the soul. And then he goes on to say, for a man to conquer himself is the first and noblest of all victories. Yeah, that's the whole mission. That's the whole goal behind your soul journey. Conquering yourself, finding yourself, taking ownership of your life. And then I have a lot of quotes from him. I came up with like 22 quotes of Plato. He says, do not train a child to learn by force or harshness, but direct them to it by what amuses their minds, so that you may be better able to discover with accuracy the peculiar bent of the genius of each. So what he's saying here, exactly, using psychology when training children, basically. Don't force a child to learn something. Rather, seek their curiosity and interest by amusing them, so that they can want to discover it better. When you're intrinsically motivated in whatever you're learning, you're gonna be genius at it. But if you're being forced by whatever external forces to learn something, like what happens in school, basically. This is something that happens in school, and I know because I've worked in school basically my entire half of my career. I've been in schools working with children from all ages, elementary, middle, high school, and I've been around college students. In school, school is a forceful thing. We're expected to go to school. We're expected to graduate. We're expected to study. We're expected to get good grades. This rebellion of students comes about because they're being forced to do it. Unless they're, very mature at a young age and very wise about what they're going to be doing later on, their soul mission at an early age, obviously they're going to be more intrinsically motivated to learn these things. But 99% or 88% of all the students are not as intrinsically motivated to really learn until their older years. Okay, for many men, according to studies and demographics, Men tend to be more interested in their spiritual soul journey, about really learning and seeking the truth, like in their 40s and afterwards, 50s and 60s years old. Women, you know, a little younger, depending on where you're at in your journey, depending on what you do for a living. You know, for example, for me, I've always been interested in this stuff. In my 20s, I was already, you know, all psychology, wanting to learn all this crazy stuff, all these concepts that were so abstract. But now in my 30s, it's like I'm getting back to that again, like very, very intricately wanting to learn the actual truth, way beyond psychology, everything, okay? How it all ties in together. But I see other women that it's mostly like around their 40s, 50s as well. You know, because it's the life cycle phases, what people go through, okay? Obviously, me and other healers in this journey are exceptions, are the outliers, because we're meant to be, you know, the leading light to all of the other people, right? So basically, what I'm saying is that to really allow the genius of the creativity to come sparking, to really allow this intrinsic motivation to really want to know more, want to know the truth, this happens in later years. But it also happens by non-force, okay? So if you're never forced, if you want your children in school to actually learn, don't force them so blatantly. You see, I'm gonna bring on a children's series so that I can teach you more about parenting skills, because I know a lot about that, what I've learned in school and, you know, having my own brothers and dealing with other children in my life. But it's about, you know, subtly and subliminally directing them in areas that amuse them. Okay, and always encouraging them to seek what they're passionate about. Okay, never seeking upon them a career that they don't want to do. Okay, so let us continue. The excessive increase in anything causes a reaction in the opposite direction. This is about exaggeration, addictions, okay? That's obviously going to bring about the opposite effect of what you're trying to accomplish. Then he goes on to say, music is a moral law. It gives soul to the universe. You know, even Celine Dion said this in a concert that I went to. Music is the universal language of the soul. And that's powerful, because music is that powerful. It's wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and charm and gaiety, which is happiness and joy, to life and everything. And then he goes on to say, courage is knowing what not to fear. Now, I've been talking about courage a lot lately. Courage, and even Celine Dion's concert was themed courage. Courage is knowing what not to fear. Courage is the opposite of fear, basically. Fear is fearing what you fear, basically, what you're afraid of. Courage is knowing what not to fear. You see, courage is about stepping forth with no fear, okay? Knowing that there's no need to be fearful. There's only love. The measure of a man is what he does with power. This is about character, okay? A man of good influence with lots of power is going to be determined by how he uses that power, versus a man with a lot of power who misuses that power is going to say a lot about his character. And obviously, it's the karma that you attract. Then he goes on to say, love is born into every human being. It calls back the halves of our original nature together. And I feel like this also relates to, you know, your other half, your twin flame. It tries to make one out of the two and heal the wound by human nature. Oneness, integration of masculine and femininity from within, eloping. Poets utter great and wise things which they themselves do not understand. Exactly. You know, that's because it's not of yours. It's divine intelligence. So you're saying things, you're writing things, you're channeling things. You're being the messenger of things that you really don't understand. But that's a poet, basically, because God speaks through you through poetic language, through the arts, okay? Human behavior flows from three main sources: desire, emotion, and knowledge. That's what basically motivates our behavior. A desire to do something, your actual emotions, and knowledge. Then he goes on to say, good people do not need laws to tell them to act responsibly, while bad people will find a way around the laws. Wow. This is about, you know, exactly what it's saying, you know. Good people don't need anyone to tell them what's right and what's wrong. They'll do the right thing no matter what, because that's what their soul is speaking to them, versus bad people always find a way around the laws, around a way of escaping the laws, making excuses for not following the laws. That's a bad person right there. Then, if women are expected to do the same work as men, we must teach them the same things. That's about, gender equality. Now we're going to move on finally to Aristotle. Aristotle, he was 384 to 322 BC. He was the Greek philosopher known as the first teacher. He contributed to metaphysics, logic, mathematics, physics, biology, botany, ethics, politics, agriculture, medicine, dance, and theater. He was a student of Plato. So Plato was the one before that. So it follows Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. But Aristotle also studied some of Socrates' teachings. Now, one of his major themes that he spoke a lot about was the self and friendship. Those are the two main things that I decided to talk about, because he has a lot of, knowledge and belief systems when it comes to science and contributions to physics. But I wanted to focus on the mind, the psyche. When it comes to self, he says, this is very interesting. Let me take a sip, because it's very intricate. It had to make me think actually to really say what he get to what he was saying, meaning. Okay. Passions can overpower perceptual knowledge of particulars, but denies that it can dominate intellectual knowledge of universals. Passion, anything you're passionate about, can overpower any perceived knowledge that you think you know about a specific subject. You see, because this is what it's saying. It's like, let us put, for example, a doctor and a medicine healer, like a very natural, holistic medicine healer. Just for example, someone who has a lot of knowledge in the medical industry, which is the subject, the particular, the medicine area, versus someone who's passionate about, the medicine area, aka he's passionate about it, so your perceived knowledge doesn't determine how actually wise you are in that subject. It's the passion that counts. That overcomes anything that you think you know. You get it? Because the more passionate you are about, it goes back to say, the more intrinsically motivated you are to actually seek the genius within you to figure it out, whatever that subject's about. And then he goes, but denies that it can dominate intellectual knowledge of universals, but denies that it can dominate. So there's basically a fine line now. Even though this passion can overpower this perceptual knowledge, it still can't take over the intellectual knowledge of universals. There's still a certain truth, obviously, such as like spiritual truth. You could be very passionate about your spiritual journey, but there's still a certain truth that dominates your passion, which is God, the divine intelligence. That's always going to be of the universal truth. But passion will always override that perceptual knowledge of what you think you know. Okay, it's very intricate to explain, but I hope you understand. Then he goes on to say about this, ignorance is only temporary and relates to one's knowledge of particulars. Obviously, the less you know, the more ignorant, right? And the more you think you know, actually the more ignorant you are. Because if you think you know it all, then you don't know anything. There's always room for learning, basically. One is unruled because one's passions or lower desires temporarily take over and prevent one from grasping things as one should. So now this is about temptation. One is unable to be ruled, basically. We have no control over ourselves because our passions and lower desires, aka those hidden temptations, take over your body, take your power away, and they prevent you from grasping things that you should do, moral ethical codes, basically. Your super ego telling you what you should do. Acrasia then becomes a conflict between reasoning and unreasoning, which are parts of the psyche. This is what's happening in the psyche, this conflict between what you should and shouldn't do. Your passion versus the moral, ethical thing to do, okay? Now, given that badness is a form of ignorance about what one should do, it is reasonable to ask whether acting acratically, that is, doing what one does not want to do, just comes down to being ignorant. So now, given that badness is a form of ignorance about what one should do, he's asking if we should ask ourselves, okay, if you're saying this passion will overrule, it's a conflict between passion and morality. Following this morality, is it ignorant because you're just following along with what you should do? And then he holds acrasia, which is that what you do not want to do, which is basically the opposite of your passion, what you really desire to do, is distinct from ignorance. And he also thinks it's impossible for knowledge to be dragged around by the passion like a slave. It's impossible for knowledge to be dragged around by passion like a slave, because passion will basically enslave you. Okay, whatever you're passionate about, it could be good passion or bad passion. If you're passionate about something that's forbidden, for example, that can be your heart's slave, aka, infatuation, obsession, temptations, addictions. And then he goes on to say, being overcome by one's passions is possible when knowledge is stronger than the passions. So what's the solution? When one admits, you have to admit basically, that the passion can overpower perceptual knowledge of particulars, you have to accept that basically your passion is taking over you, but denies that it can dominate the intellectual knowledge of universals. So you basically, this is a solution to overcome addictions, to overcome temptations, according to Aristotle's point of view, is that you have to admit that passion can overcome your perceptual knowledge, but it can't overrule the universal truth. Okay, but now it goes back to the first sentence, which says, passions can overpower perceptual knowledge of particulars, but denies that it can dominate intellectual knowledge of universals. Meaning, what is this intellectual knowledge of universals? The spiritual truth, God, the universe, okay, the creator. So even though your passions can overrule you, your own knowledge, it can never rule the bigger picture, the divine. So if you're in line with the divine, like the Course in Miracles teaches us, and the Holy Spirit is within you and you're one with God, then these passions can't overrule you. Control is an illusion. And that's actually the past 5 lessons from the Course in Miracles. So review those daily lessons on my IGTV, because it really explains this basically. Basically, control is an illusion, and loss of control is an illusion. These addictions and these temptations can never overrule you. It's an illusion of the ego. And whatever in your life is making you believe that they're overruling you. Now he goes on to say about friendship. He talks about friendship. He says the value of friendship follows from the ideas that when a person is a friend to himself, he wishes the good for himself, and thus to improve his own character. If you're really a friend to yourself, if you're really your own best friend basically on your journey, then you're truly going to want the best for yourself. You're truly going to want to, seek help for yourself. You're going to want to improve your character. Progression, like Tony Robbins says. Only such a person who has a healthy love of self can form a friendship with another person. You see? That's true. Unconditional love towards self obviously is going to transpire into having unconditional love for another person, whether it be a friend, a family, or a lover. And then finally, some quotes that are very famous from Aristotle are, a friend to all is a friend to none. Obviously we know this. This is about keeping your friend circle to basically the count of one hand, your true close friends. And the first and foremost friendship should be one in you and the divine, then yourself. So you already have 2 here. And then is your sacred other, your beloved other, your twin flame, your soulmate. And then you fill in the blank with 2 other people who have basically been with you through the thick and the thin. Okay, then We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. This is about practice makes it perfect. Then he goes on to say, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. How does this relate to the twin flames? Because the whole, which means the union of the twin flames, masculine and feminine, and even the union within self, the integration of masculinity and femininity from within, is going to be greater influence, of greater power, of greater love than the sum of its parts, than either one independently. Than you just embodying a masculine energy, or you just embodying a feminine energy, or both beloveds separately on their own life. There's a greater power when they're united. Then he goes on to say, happiness depends upon ourselves. Happiness is a choice. We hear that all the time. It's very cliche, but it all came from this ideal. Then he goes on to say, quality is not an act, it's a habit. You see, because in your habits, this is about what I'm getting here. If you actually want to be good at something, don't expect to basically be at your most high quality on show day, a metaphor, on the day that is when you're gonna show whatever skill you've been working at. In order to really give it high quality, this high quality has to be sustained as a habit. You have to practice at that high quality, and that requires stamina. Okay? So that's kind of like a strategy for being a winner of your life. Then, one swallow does not make a summer, neither does one fine day. Similarly, one day or a brief time of happiness does not make a person entirely happy. This is about, one brief moment of immediate gratification is not going to make you happy. It's not going to fulfill you on a deep soul level. It's not going to last for the long haul. So this is about getting at the true core of what's going to make you joyful in this life, what's going to fulfill you. Then he goes on to say, the law is reason, free from passion. The law, which is logical, is all reasonable, is all, scientifically. It's free from passion, because the law has no passion. If you're just following blindly rules, if you're living by the book, that has no passion. Then, it is the mark of an educated man to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. It is the mark of an educated man. So this is a key flag that a man is educated. When he is able to entertain a thought without accepting it. This is about thinking for yourself. Before actually accepting that thought as yours, you actually take the time to really dissect it and see if it fits in line with your values, with your morals, with your way of thinking, with your school of thought. That's an educated mind. You think for yourself. You make your own decisions, not based on what society has made you do, not based off what your parents tell you to do, not based off what your family tells you to do, not based off what your friends tell you to do. An educated mind makes decisions on their own taking, based off their own intuition, following the compass of your own soul, your heart, head over heart, heart over head. Okay, because a lot of people nowadays are thinking head over heart, logical over the heart, logical over the emotions. But in the end of the day, it's gonna make you feel lonely, sad, empty, and devoid of true love. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all, what I just said. You see, it's all about the heart first, then comes the mind. And then man is by nature a political animal. This is about animalistic instincts. We need to basically train ourselves, because humankind is corrupted by nature, which is representative of the political world. Politics, is corrupted, right? Animals are known to be all over the place, are known to be destructive, are known to be impulsive, are known to be animalistic, based off instincts rather than thinking behind what you're doing, knowledge-wise action. Man by nature is corrupted. So we need to take the time to basically retrain our mind, which is what the Course in Miracles is all about. Retraining our mind. Those are the last chapters there. So check it out on my School of Thought, because you're going to learn more about that, how to retrain your mind into a higher consciousness, a higher being of more intelligence that is divine, that is on their spiritual mission, that is at peace on a really deep soul level, emotionally fulfilled, really joyful, experiencing loving, harmonious relationships in your life all around, romantic, family, children, with yourself, with the divine. All of this is what I do. So check out the resources on my page. So I really hope you enjoyed today's podcast, Motivational Monday. Have an amazing and beautiful day. Thank you for following. Please like, share, and subscribe on this video and my YouTube channel, as well as all of my other social media. Friend me on my Facebook private groups to become access to all of those live videos that I do there all the time. Also, make sure that you subscribe to my free newsletter on my website. Receive your free monthly newsletter, as well as an astrological update every month, as well as any other events going on my website. Make sure you also stay tuned to all of my blogs, which you will receive updates on my newsletter. Check out my calendar for upcoming events, and also become a member of my School of Thought to get more into this ancient wisdom and knowledge. And for all of you women out there, become a member of my Sacred Woman Healing Circle, which it's kind of like a program. It's really a healing journey that I'm doing there. So you follow along the videos on your journey. You know, I used to do this at a young age with other influencers. I basically learned to heal myself and actually learn more about how to become and attract love, how to really heal myself by, you know, programs and seeking the knowledge, because you need to know, you know, rather than just think that you know. So basically take the time to actually, you know, learn things about your journey, what you can do differently, because whatever you're doing, if you're not in a good place, obviously is not working. So, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over, expecting a different results. So if you really want to change your life, do something different. Okay, take a risk in your life. Be a fool for love. Be a fool for yourself. Okay, so have an amazing and beautiful day. Namaste.